You can import Microsoft Word files into your Flair project. Before you do this, there are a few things to consider. We highly recommend that you first clean up your Word documents as much as possible. One way you can do this is to make sure you use styles in Word, as opposed to local formatting. Heading styles such as heading 1, heading 2, and so on are going to come in handy, as you'll see in a moment. Also, instead of just highlighting inline text and applying formatting such as bold and colors and other things like that, it's a good idea to create and use character styles on that content instead. Trust us, you'll be glad you did. Also, realize beforehand how your new Flair files are going to be named. For each Word document that you import, Flair is going to create a folder in a window pane called the Content Explorer, and it names the folder after the Word document. Within this folder will be all of the topics that were created based on where you told Flair to make new topics. These topics will be named after the first text it comes across where a new topic is created. For example, the heading 1 text. But there is a special way to automatically create unique file names for the topics in case you want something different. This help topic shows you how to prepare your source Word documents to make this happen. You should also be aware of how imported image files are named. If you've inserted a picture as a linked image in a Word document, the file name for the image is preserved when imported into Flair. But if you've inserted a picture as an embedded image in a Word document, the file name for the image is based on the topic name when imported into Flair. When you convert from Word to Flair, you're also converting to a new way of thinking. In Word, you create documents, sometimes long ones. A single Word document might be an entire manual with many chapters. You can use Flair the same way in that you can open a topic and write a 100-page manual, but the real power of Flair will be missed if you do that. In Flair, you don't typically work with large documents that become manuals by themselves. Rather, you work with topics, which are typically much smaller. That makes them easy to reuse. You'll have many more topics in Flair than you have chapters in a Word manual. So with Word, you're really starting out with a print-first mindset. And the challenge is, how in the world do you convert that print-based documentation to usable online documentation, such as an online help system or a knowledge base? On the other hand, Flair is based on a topic-based authoring environment, where online output is usually the first consideration. However, Flair also lets you arrange your topics in any way you want for print-based output as well. Most people are going to have Word installed on their computers when they import. However, did you know that Flair lets you import from Word even if you don't have it installed? No kidding. For example, Office 365 users can select this checkbox in the Options dialog to enable this. It's still recommended that you have Word installed, but just in case you don't, you can use this option. When you're ready to import your Word files, ask yourself whether you already have a Flair project started. If you do, you can import your Word files by first adding an import file to your project. To do this, open the Project ribbon, click the new drop-down field and select Import File, then add MS Word Import File. After you complete the fields in the dialog, a new import file will be added to the project organizer, and the Word import editor opens to the right. If you do not yet have a Flair project, select File, New Project, then MS Word Documents. On the first page of the wizard, give the project a name and location. You can also choose a primary output type, but don't worry too much about what you select at this point, because this doesn't limit the outputs that you can create from your project. Besides, you can always change the primary target later. Then click Next. Whether you're importing Word documents into an existing Flair project using the Word import editor, or you're importing them into a new project using the wizard, the rest of the fields are pretty much the same. In the rest of this video, we'll complete the fields using the wizard. Click the plus button and then find and select the Word files you want to import. After you add the Word files to the dialog, you can use the arrow keys to rearrange their order. This will affect where the imported files are placed in the table of contents file that's created automatically when your new project is loaded. The checkbox in the lower left corner lets you link to your source Word files, but this is optional. If you want to take Flair out for a test drive and continue to edit content in your Word files for a while, you can leave this checkbox selected. Whenever you make changes to your source Word files, you can re-import them into your Flair project. However, if you're ready to burn the ships, so to speak, and say goodbye to Word for good, then deselect this checkbox. If you do that, you'll be editing the content files within the Flair project from this point on. On the next page in the wizard, Flair is asking where you want to break up the Word files into new topics. So take a moment and think about the best, most logical places to begin and end topics. Usually you want the topic breaks to occur wherever you have styles such as heading 1, heading 2, or even heading 3. This is why we said a little bit ago that it's useful to use heading styles in your Word documents. So double-click the styles that you want to signal the beginning of new topics. those styles will be moved to the right side of the page. On the next page of the wizard, you're going to see a lot of options. These let you provide Flair with information about how you want your files to be imported. Most authors will find that they can ignore some of these fields, but others might be very useful for you. For detailed information on each field, see the steps provided in this online help topic. We do want to emphasize a few of the options, though. When importing Word documents, try to make the most out of importing tables from those documents. Maybe you've got tables in your documents and you've changed the width of the different table columns. When you do the import, those column widths will be just what you specified in Word. However, if you select this checkbox, you can bring them in so that the tables are set to resize columns automatically to fit the contents within the cells. Also, you can click this checkbox to convert the first row of every table into a header row. This makes styling tables more efficient. If you do not select this option, only tables that already have header rows in the Word document will become header rows in Flair. Tables without header rows will be imported just as they are. Also, Flair uses things called page layouts to configure pages when you want to produce print-based output, such as PDFs. These page layouts are used to control things like the page size, orientation, and headers and footers on the pages. If you plan to generate print-based output from Flair, and you probably do, you can save yourself a lot of time by doing a few things up front. First, in your Word documents, make sure you've inserted section breaks wherever you plan to have new topics begin. Second, make sure those sections have at least one header or footer in them. And third, click this checkbox in the Flair wizard. After the import, your page layouts will already be created for you. On the next page of the wizard, you have a couple of options when it comes to the look of your Word source files. One option is to keep the formatting, which you may want to do if you've got tons of styles and formatting throughout your documents, and it would crush you to lose any of that. If you do this, just know that you'll end up with a lot of child formats in your style sheet in Word. The names look like h1.heading1 or h2.heading2, where the part after the period comes from the style names in your Word files. The other option is to not keep the formatting. You might consider this option if you don't have a lot of formatting in your source documents anyway. So you'll lose your formatting, but the good thing is that you can map your Word styles to standard CSS styles at the parent level without having to create a child style. In other words, you'll end up with h1 instead of h1.heading1. It's a way to start with a fresh style sheet in Flair. If you have lots of inline formatting in your Word documents and you did not use styles for that content, you can click this option in the Flair wizard. This will automatically convert that inline formatting to styles in Flair. However, you can't use the wizard to map those styles. And because you didn't use styles in Word, the converted styles in Flair will just have generic names like span.span1 and span.span2 and so on. And when you want to use those styles in Flair, you might have a hard time figuring out which style does what. That's why we always recommend using styles in Word instead. The next page of the wizard shows all of the paragraph styles in your Word source files. It also shows a bunch of paragraph styles in Flair. You can use this page of the wizard to map your Word styles to the most appropriate Flair styles. It's a good idea to map all of your paragraph styles with Word styles, rather than not mapping anything. Otherwise, you may not like the styles you end up with. On the next page of the wizard, you can do the same thing with your character level styles. Some of the Flair styles are straightforward. The B style is for bold, the I style is for italic, and so on. But if you have something unique in your Word documents, like combined red-bold text that you use for warnings, you can map it to the generic span style in Flair. If all of this mapping seems a little confusing, you can create a few Flair projects using this import wizard, making different selections each time. Then, in the resulting Flair projects, open your style sheet in the Content Explorer and take a look at how the styles are named. Doing this might help you understand the results provided based on your choices and make a more informed decision. After you click Finish, you'll see a dialog that shows the files that will be created as a result of the import. If you're happy with it, click Accept and your new Flair project will be created. If you created a new Flair project using the wizard, notice that Flair automatically saves your settings to an import file. That file is kept here in the project organizer. You can open this file anytime you want to re-import changes from the Word documents. Now that your Word files have been imported into Flair, what's next? There are all kinds of things you can do. This includes adding a variety of elements and objects to your files, working on making your project look good, developing your targets, and building output. This online help topic talks about each of these basic steps. In addition, it's a good idea to download the Getting Started tutorial. This is a PDF manual that guides you through the creation and development of an actual flair project using our San Diego template. Thanks for watching, and happy authoring!